I opened our marriage on our anniversary. My husband raged and took brutal revenge. Where did you get that? She asked, shocked. Really? I show you proof of your cheating and you ask where I got it? Does it matter? Will it change the fact that you cheated on me? I asked my wife of 7 years. It looks bad, and I admit we kissed, but it's not cheating. We were in full view of others, she replied. So that's your defense? No explanation of who he is or why you were kissing? You think because you're not having sex in the picture it's fine? Is that your idea of keeping our vows? I retorted. Brian, I see you're upset. We were just caught off guard. Making a big deal out of this won't help, she said firmly. You haven't even given me his name. Why should I get upset over someone I don't know? I said sarcastically. Does his name matter? You might do something stupid like pick a fight, and he'll punch you. I won't let that happen, she objected. Thanks for your honesty. You've made your choice, now I'll make mine, I replied hotly. I turned and ran upstairs to pack. She followed me. What are you doing? She asked, confused. Packing a suitcase, I responded curtly. But why? She questioned, desperation in her voice. I can't take your lies and deceit. I need to leave before I do something I regret, I growled. Don't be silly, Brian. You wouldn't slap me, she said, trying to reason with me. Until today, I thought you'd never cheat on me. I guess we don't know each other, I shot back. Cheating? Who said I cheated? Kissing him wasn't cheating, she argued. There you go, lying again. But I've never cheated on you, Brian. I didn't cheat on you with him or anyone else, she shouted, her voice rising. What do you call this? I held out another picture from that same night, a pretty good picture of her entertaining him. But where? How? She stammered. Does it matter? Does knowing change the fact that you cheated and lied? I demanded. She dropped the pictures and sobbed, trying to hug me. Stay away, Tracy. I gave you a chance to be honest, but you didn't think I was worth the truth. I could have stayed to discuss this for our son's sake if you were honest, but you demand too much. I'll take my phone, only call for emergencies with Bobby or I'll block you. Clear? She nodded and I walked out, furious and heartbroken. I checked into a motel on Friday night. I decided to take the weekend to consider my next steps. If I divorced her, Bobby would be in a single-parent home and I'd have to pay alimony and child support. I wished she had explained or apologized. That's why I decided it was better for us to be apart and think about our next move. The absence of my wife and son weighed heavily on me, and the loneliness was unbearable. I cried until I passed out. By noon the next day, messages started arriving. I had earned an engineering degree and worked at a local chemical lab. After 5 years, I was offered a production manager position at a research and development center 1,000 miles away with a significant salary increase. We moved, leaving friends and family behind. Tracy got a job at a large credit card company's call center with over 1,200 employees her age. A year later, Bobby was born, and I convinced her to be a stay-at-home mom since I was well paid. She loved her work friends, who quickly became our social circle. We often got together with her Kio workers and their spouses. Although I had no objections, our social life mostly revolved around her Kio workers. I felt out of place among the charming men, but they treated me well. The messages were from our friends, whom Tracy had informed about our problems in detail. They urged me to meet and resolve the situation. I was amazed at how she kept this from me but shared it with them. I disliked others knowing the intimate details of my life. Tracy didn't call or text, knowing I'd block her. Cassidy, Tracy's best friend, seemed to instigate everything. She wanted me to meet the group at her house on Sunday at 6 p.m. Suspecting a trap, I suggested Angus Steakhouse instead, where I could leave freely. They reluctantly agreed. I had several reasons to agree to the meeting, to understand why Tracy did what she did, to see whose side our friends were on, and to learn if anyone was involved in her actions. As an account manager, I'm used to confrontations and staying calm. I wanted answers to make an informed decision. I parked my car nearby and walked to the restaurant, realizing the group had arrived early to strategize. This amused me. There was only one seat at the table, next to Tracy. She stood to greet me, but I stopped her before she could reach me. If you don't mind, I'd prefer to sit at the far end of the table, away from her. If not, I can sit at another table, I said. Cassidy quickly responded before Tracy could. Of course, Brian. Jared, please give Brian a seat at the end of the table. Your dinner's already paid for, Brian. Let's all go ahead and order. We were in a private dining area to avoid prying eyes. Everyone placed their orders quickly. Before Cassidy or anyone else could start talking, I handed out copies of the photo of Tracy kissing the mystery man. You all seem very interested in Tracy and me settling our differences. I was shocked she shared our personal matters before we had a chance to discuss them ourselves. This shows her continued disrespect for me and our marriage. Cassidy tried to speak, but I interrupted. Before any discussion begins, I want an answer. Look closely at this picture. Do you see that man? Tracy refuses to give his name. I'm sure at least one of you knows who he is. If you want to help, I need information. If no one can be honest and provide the facts, then we have nothing more to discuss. There was complete silence. Even Cassidy hesitated to speak. No one claimed they didn't know the man or offered his name. I had my answer. Thank you for your time. I hope someone is hungry enough to eat my steak. I've lost my appetite. No one here seems interested in helping us repair our relationship. I apologize. I got up and left. Tracy called out, begging me to come back, but no one else did. It was clear our friends were her friends, not mine. Tracy, Cassidy, and the group were stunned. They had planned a reasonable discussion, but I blindsided them with my demand. They weren't prepared to handle it. I didn't mention it at the restaurant, but I was on my way out of the motel. I stopped at a fast food place to grab something to eat. When I got home, I talked to the babysitter Tracy had hired earlier and thanked her. I quickly ate and moved my clothes and personal items into the spare bedroom. Over the weekend, I had bought locks with identical keys for the spare bedroom and hall bathroom doors to avoid any physical encounters with Tracy. Once settled, I played with my 3-year-old son, bathed him, and put him to bed. Tracy arrived home around 10:15 p.m. She seemed happy to see me back and found me in Bobby's room, watching him sleep with tears streaming down my face. I shushed her and waved her away. No need to disturb his innocent slumber. After closing the door, she tried to hug me, but I stopped her. I'm glad you're back. Let me make you something to eat. We need to talk. I've already eaten, but thanks. So, where have you been? With your lover again? I hinted. No, I was at the steakhouse. They helped me find the right words to get us back on track. I have a lot to tell you, she explained. I'll talk if you give me your lover's name. If not, we have nothing to discuss. I can't. I just can't, she said sadly. I wish you'd show me your husband half the devotion you show your lover. I'll stay in the spare bedroom until further notice. Don't touch me. Who knows what diseases you might carry now. But I won't let this keep me from my son. If you're ready to talk, your first words will be your lover's name. If you're willing to sacrifice our marriage to protect him, so be it. Don't speak to me until you're ready to give up his name. She walked away, sobbing. A week went by. Tracy and I only spoke to Bobby, not to each other. On Monday night, I came home to a surprise. Everything seemed fine until I walked into the kitchen. A crowd of Tracy's friends surrounded me, eager to see me again. They avoided saying anything that might annoy me, but it felt like they were walking on eggshells. The first thing I asked was, "Where's Bobby?" I don't want adult conversations around my son. I've dropped him off at the babysitter's. He's staying there tonight, Tracy explained. I see, I said, surprised. There had been pre-planning I wasn't aware of. I didn't see your cars parked outside. We all parked a block away to surprise you, Brian. We couldn't risk you driving by after seeing our cars, Cassidy said. Well, you caught me off guard. Why are you all here? Has something changed that I should know about? I asked. Yes, honey, Tracy began. Let's go to the living room and explain everything. I'm ready to answer your questions. Sure, but I need to use the bathroom first. I'll be right there. I went to the restroom, turned on the recording on my cell phone, and put it in my shirt pocket. Then I joined them in the living room and noticed 2 new faces. I immediately recognized Tracy's lover sitting next to a younger woman. Tracy began, Brian, meet Elliot Franklin and his wife Gail. They've been our friends for a long time. I know this may shock you, but you insisted on knowing who he was. We all decided this was the best way to tell you. If you try to attack him, the guys here will intervene. We don't want anyone to get hurt. So you finally show me his face. It's a bit late to worry about me getting hurt, isn't it? I said sarcastically. You didn't care about hurting me, just keeping him safe. Don't worry, I won't touch him. I don't want any diseases he might have given Tracy. Everyone groaned in disappointment. Cassidy jumped in. Brian, we understand your frustration. Can we speak calmly? We are trying to give you what you asked for. You wanted his name, and now you have it. We assumed you would also want to talk to him, and we've arranged that. Elliot doesn't need me to speak for him. He can speak for himself. We're just introducing you. Elliot stood up and held out his hand. We've gotten off to a bad start. I hope we can be friends or at least polite. I'll treat you with respect and courtesy, and I hope you will do the same. May I call you Brian? He asked. I kept my hands at my side. First, since we're just meeting, Mr. Franklin, you should call me Mr. Wilson. I can't imagine our relationship warrants familiarity. Second, you promise respect after showing blatant disrespect. I won't ignore your insolence and treat you politely in return. Fair enough, Mr. Wilson. My suggestion was for our conversation today, not past incidents. I'd like to discuss what happened between me and the woman you married. Please don't call her my wife. That title may be short-lived. I'm considering divorce, which I'm sure you know. How should I address her, Mr. Wilson? Refer to her as the woman I married. I'll accept that. Very well, Mr. Wilson. I'd like to explain what happened between the woman you married and me. I hope you find my perspective acceptable. I'm listening, Mr. Franklin. Go ahead. Elliot took a deep breath and began, Look around this room, Mr. Wilson. You see a room full of attractive people, including the woman you married and yourself. Do you think it's a coincidence that your best friends are more attractive than average? This group came together like birds of a feather. As friendships grew, so did closeness. Everyone here is in a happy, stable relationship. Our goal is confidence in our soulmates, making us inseparable. We all believe the same about you and the woman you married, he continued. Take my wife, Gail. She's as great to me as any woman here, and we plan to spend our lives together. No man here, including you, will take her from me. This confidence allows us to share with others for our mutual growth. Monogamy is outdated. True love involves trust, closeness, understanding, and sharing.
How nice for you and your wife, Mr. Franklin, and the rest of this group if they all agree.
But that has nothing to do with me and the woman I married. Excuse me, Mr. Wilson, but don't you see the benefits of trust, understanding, and security in your relationship? You could both grow by opening up to this, he said, spreading his arms to include everyone. If what you say is true, Mr. Franklin, then you just called every woman here a strumpet, including the one I married. I'm appalled you changed her morals so easily. A gentleman never interferes in marital relations as you have. I see your flawed logic, Mr. Wilson. This isn't one-sided. You too are invited to embrace our concepts. You could be with any woman here, if you desired. When you joined our group, it was inevitable you'd be invited to participate fully. If you hadn't reacted so harshly, she would have discussed the potential benefits with you. Instead, she panicked and retreated. I'm sure you'll see the benefits of what we suggest. We just need to find a way to make you comfortable. I see, I said, pretending to consider his words. Then I looked Tracy in the eye and asked, Is this true? You discussed this with them and agreed to test the waters with Mr. Franklin without telling me first. Tracy nodded nervously. I heard how these experiences improve and strengthen marriages, and I wanted the same for us. My love for you hasn't changed. I only wanted to show you what I learned to convince you it would be good for us, she smiled, realizing it was our first real conversation since that night. So you want me to believe that one session with him made you an experienced courtesan? It wasn't your first time, was it? She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. Mr. Franklin jumped in. Don't you see, Mr. Wilson? We helped her understand the benefits. You can participate too, and there are other advantages. So you think you're some kind of Casanova? I asked. Mr. Wilson, I am experienced and attentive. I help less experienced lovers like the woman you married. She will learn and grow, and you will benefit from her new experience. Everyone goes through periods of complacency. I looked at Tracy again. When have I resisted trying something new? If you wanted to spice things up, why didn't you talk to me instead of jumping into bed with him? She replied, Please don't misunderstand. Me, honey, you're a gentle and sweet lover, which I need most of the time, but sometimes I want something more forceful and direct, which Elliot showed me. He never tried to replace you in my heart. I kept my anger in check, realizing our relationship couldn't be repaired. Inside, I felt a storm, but outwardly, I stayed calm. Now, I aimed to gather ammunition to create chaos in their lives for destroying my home. Thank you, Brian. Now, do you see our group in a better light? Will you and Tracy join? Your marriage will grow stronger, I guarantee it. I forced a grin. I need more time to digest everything. Tracy and I need to talk one-on-one. Once we settle things, we'll get back to you. Is that okay? He grinned weakly, needing my answer immediately but not getting it. Sure, he said reluctantly. Take as much time as you need. He nodded, and 3 large men grabbed and held me. I wasn't going anywhere. Though surprised, I didn't feel threatened. Tracy walked over, pulled my cell phone from my pocket, and started deleting videos. Brian, we want to trust you, but until you're one of us, we have to protect ourselves. It was clear you were recording tonight's events on your phone. We can't afford that. Tracy nodded at Elliot, who asked, Is it all gone? Tracy replied, Yes, there's no recording of tonight. She tucked my phone away, showing she was fully committed to their group. I showed the look of defeat Elliot wanted. Elliot continued, Don't be so down, Brian. I'd like to think you were recording to choose who to be with first in our group, but we can't take that risk. He patted me on the back, and the group quietly left. I grabbed my keys and headed to the garage. Tracy asked, "Where are you going?" "To pick up Bobby if that's okay," I replied. "I was hoping we could, reconnect tonight." "Do you really need to get him now?" "I miss my son. I'll be back soon," I said and walked out. I drove to Angus Steakhouse, hungry since I hadn't eaten dinner. The restaurant didn't disappoint. I savored the tender beef, mentally reviewing the night's events, hoping my plan would work out. Mrs. Stevenson thanked me for the generous tip. I might need her help again soon. Bobby was thrilled to see me and couldn't stop laughing all the way home. I bathed and fed him before putting him to bed. Tracy informed me she was cooking something light, but I told her I had already eaten and she should take care of herself. Offended, she brushed me off, not wanting to upset Bobby. Since we both had work tomorrow, I got ready for bed. Tracy wanted to talk. "What's going on, Brian? You seemed interested in Elliot's offer, then you shut me out." "What happened?" she asked. "I'm glad you asked. Let me answer with some questions. Your answers might provide clarity," I replied. "Go ahead," she said. "Just before they left, 3 men grabbed me in my own house. You said nothing. Is that true?" "It wasn't like that," she objected. "Wasn't it? 3 men grabbed me, yes or no, Tracy? Did it happen?" "Yes," she said, but I interrupted her. "Yes, it did. Did you protest? Were there any witnesses who were also silent? Yes or no, Tracy?" "No," she answered reluctantly. "We're starting to understand." Next question. "Did I ask you to take my phone and delete anything from it?" "Yes or no, Tracy? Be honest." "No," she said quietly. "So bear with me. This is a long question. Be careful so I don't have to repeat myself. You admit you had no objection to me being restrained in my own home. You also admit you took my cell phone and deleted recordings, not at my request, but at someone else's. Is that true, Tracy? Yes or no?" I asked, my frustration clear. "Yes," Tracy replied. "Good, we're almost there. Since I was in the room and heard no one ask you to delete anything from my phone, you must have agreed to this task without my knowledge. Is that correct?" I pressed. Tracy looked down. "Yes, that's correct. I hadn't thought of it that way." "You make it seem like a betrayal," she said, her voice shaking. "It is a betrayal, Tracy. Now, why did I drop you like a hot potato? Your own answers reveal why. You proved today that you were on their side, not mine. Now I'm going to bed alone. I don't want to be around someone who so indifferently betrays me," I declared. Tracy started sobbing as I left her in the hallway. I locked the door. Around 4 in the morning, I heard her trying to open it, but the lock foiled her attempts. Tuesday morning, I talked to the vice president. "Dan, can you recommend a good divorce attorney? One who will fight hard for the husband?" I asked him. "Please tell me you're not asking for yourself, Brian," Dan pleaded, looking worried. "Unfortunately, I am." "I assumed you might know someone," I replied, trying to keep my composure. "I'm friends with Ted Russ from our legal firm. He can recommend someone. Let me call him and get back to you," Dan offered. "Thanks, Dan," I said, feeling a bit of relief. "And don't worry, Brian. This stays between us," Dan assured me. "You don't know how good that feels to hear." "Thank you, Dan," I said, genuinely appreciating his support. On Ted's recommendation, I called B. Thorne's office and set up an appointment for 2:30 that afternoon. It turned out to be Beatrice Thorne. She told me her caseload was 70% women and 30% men, but she fights hard for her clients despite the circumstances. I convinced her of my position, and she agreed to take my case. She warned me I'd be paying child support until Bobby turned 18, including college expenses. I said I was fine providing for my son and hoped for 50/50 custody. For alimony, she said I'd likely pay for 3 to 5 years, depending on the judge. In this state, it's usually 1 year of alimony for every 2 years of marriage, up to 20 years. After that, it's limited to 10 years. Although I'd have to deal with it, the thought of paying her to have fun with idiots pissed me off. Expecting our family to grow, Tracy and I rented the house we lived in for the past 4 years while planning to build our dream home. I had many sketches for our future retreat. Now those dreams are gone. At least the house won't be sold, divided, or fought over. Bobby, being so young, isn't attached to any particular home. If Tracy continues to rent the house, it doesn't matter to me. I know I could never sleep in the master bedroom again, knowing it had been used by that idiot. Who knows how many times they had been together before I discovered her infidelity. B explained that the average divorce in our state takes 8 months if uncontested and a year if contested. I hoped for the 8-month timeline. Staying married to a traitorous wife held no appeal now that I had decided to divorce Tracy. B also mentioned there was no financial benefit to filing a declaration of infidelity, but it could help in custody disputes. She said the paperwork could be ready by Thursday afternoon, and I asked her to serve Tracy at work on Friday at 10 a.m., so her friends and colleagues could witness it. After resolving the divorce issues and agreeing on a fee, I asked about living arrangements until the divorce was finalized. What questions do you have, Brian? B, my attorney asked. My main concern is time with my son. 8 months to a year is a long time for both of us. I don't want to be an absent father. Would it be illegal or inappropriate to continue living in the same house to maximize my time with him? I inquired. While not uncommon, it can be challenging, B replied. How so? I asked, curious. When she's served on Friday, she'll be extremely unhappy. If you're nearby, she might retaliate. Are you prepared for her anger? B explained. Absolutely, I can handle it, knowing we'll be legally separated, I responded confidently. She may not want a divorce. Often, cheating wives want both their husband and their affair. She might try to prevent it, B warned. But it's a legal process, right? She can't stop it just because she wants to, I said, trying to understand the situation fully. True, but she could complicate things, B noted. How? I asked, concerned. If you become intimate before the divorce, the timeline resets to 0 and you'll wait another 8 months. The state will see it as a desire to end the divorce process, B explained. That won't be a problem for me, though I can see Tracy trying to lure me into bed to disrupt the process. I have an iron will, B. I won't give in, I said firmly. You don't have to, B insisted. Tracy could claim you had an affair, and unless you can prove otherwise, which is nearly impossible, the timeline resets. The judge will find it hard to believe you weren't intimate while living together. I've seen it before, Brian, and I strongly advise against it. I countered. If she makes such a claim, would she need to provide specific details like time and place? I could refute those. Yes, she'd need details, but it would still be your word against hers, and the judge might believe her, especially if she's tearfully persuasive, B cautioned. Leave it to me. Thank you, B. You've been a great help, I said, feeling somewhat reassured. I then discussed another legal issue that I would face after the divorce. Tracy usually gets home half an hour before me, so I wasn't surprised to find her cooking. I avoided the kitchen and headed upstairs to shower. Using the hall bathroom gave her fewer opportunities to trap me. I took a change of clothes with me, practicing living separately under the same roof. When I came out of the bathroom, she was waiting in the hallway. Dinner will be ready soon. Bobby's in his high chair. You smell nice, she said. I'll be right down. Thanks, I replied, unlocking my spare bedroom door. The tension was palpable, but she didn't say anything sarcastic. As we ate, she began, I'd like to explain about the cell phone last night. Go ahead, I said calmly. Elliot knew you were recording and said it wasn't fair to expose everyone to that risk. They couldn't leave until the threat was neutralized. He suggested I delete the records myself in your presence. I see. And why did they trust you to do that to your husband? I asked. Because I gave them my word, Brian. I don't understand, she said, sounding confused. Understand what? Didn't you promise to be faithful to me on our wedding day? Silence followed my remarks, and I was glad for it. Darling, I don't want you to think I'm on their side. That's not true, Tracy insisted. It isn't. What if those men had grabbed you in our house? Do you think I would have stood by silently? I challenged. What choice did you have, Brian? They could have taken you easily, she reasoned. That's true, but that wouldn't have stopped me. I would have fought for you because I would have been on your side, not theirs. Last night, you acted like one of them, I pointed out. I'm sorry you don't understand, Brian. I explained about the cell phone. I don't know what else to say, she said, looking frustrated. There's nothing more to say, is there? I joked. You're right. How did you find those pictures, Brian? I'd like to know, she asked, her curiosity piqued. I'm sure you would. Maybe one of your friends isn't as loyal to your cause. What if a coworker sent those pictures to me? How would you feel? I teased. Who? Please tell me who, a man or a woman? She asked urgently. I can't tell you, Tracy. Why not? She asked, exasperated. I gave my word, I said with a grin. She realized she wasn't getting anywhere and decided to change the topic. Did you enjoy watching? She asked, trying a different angle. No, I just saw a bunch of animals, I replied. Bluntly. That's right, Brian, it doesn't have to be emotional. It's supposed to strengthen our marriage, she argued. How's that going? Our marriage is hanging by a thread, I retorted. I already feel closer to you, she added sarcastically. Don't be like that. You don't understand. Tracy, has our life become so boring and devoid of fantasy that you think we can't survive as a couple without involving others? I asked, my voice filled with disbelief. I didn't say that. It's not about survival. Don't you want to do more than just survive? Shouldn't we take chances to strengthen our marriage? What's the damage in that? She asked, her voice full of frustration. The damage is the destruction of the trust we once had. Your experiments are tearing our marriage apart. Maybe your friends don't value fidelity, but I do. I don't trust you anymore, Tracy. You've shown you're capable of doing whatever you want behind my back. If it's so important, why didn't you talk to me before jumping into bed with another man? I responded, my voice rising. I knew you'd react like this. I thought if I participated and saw the benefits, I could bring what I learned to you. When you see the improvements, you'd understand the value, she explained, trying to justify her actions. So you and Elliot see yourselves as enlightened, thinking people like me need to be spoon-fed your superior knowledge? How elitist of you. I didn't realize how lucky I was, I said, sarcasm dripping from my words. She noticed. Let me show you what I've learned. I adopted techniques from Elliot and watched Gail closely last night. The goal is to improve our love life, not destroy it. Let me show you. You won't regret it, she enthused, attempting to persuade me. Every time I look at you, I cringe. I'm not interested in kissing you anytime soon. All you offer now is what used to be mine, shared freely with other men, I retorted, my anger barely contained. Only yours? You don't own me, Brian. I never have and never will, she said defiantly. You're right. I never claimed to own you. I thought you were mine because you said you gave yourself to me. Now you've taken that back and given it to another man. You've broken something in me, Tracy, and I'm not sure it can be fixed, I said, my voice filled with sorrow and finality. She started sobbing again. That was the last conversation we had until Friday. I spent all my free time with Bobby. I changed his diaper and didn't ask for her help. It was almost a game of who bathed him the most. Bobby enjoyed the attention, and so did I. Over the next few days, I researched Elliot and Gail Franklin. I found almost nothing. The only public record for an Elliot Franklin was a homeless man arrested for soliciting money downtown. The photo and age didn't match the one who had entertained Tracy. I'll keep trying to find out more about them. I arranged for Tracy to be served at 10 a.m. on Friday because I was attending a meeting of the local chapter of facilities managers. These meetings last 2 to 4 hours, including lunch, and are sponsored by contractors advertising their services. If Tracy called, my secretary would confirm my extended absence, and I'd leave my phone on silent, only answering emergency work calls. I wasn't avoiding Tracy. I wanted to give her time to process the shock before talking. When I returned to work, I saw her numerous messages and called her back. She answered quickly, clearly upset. It's about time. Are you serious? Getting served in front of my friends? Do you know how embarrassed I was? Are you really divorcing me over this? I told you it was nothing, Brian. When will you get that through your head? Why won't you return my calls? Why won't you talk to me? My secretary should have informed you that I was in a management meeting. I called you back as soon as I could. I have a job to do. And when have I refused to talk to you? You've been avoiding me for the past 2 days. I'm still talking to you now. Let's resume this conversation after work when we have more time, I said firmly. She started crying. I don't want a divorce. Please, Brian, don't divorce me. We'll talk tonight, okay, Tracy? Okay, she said, sniffling. I love you. Tonight then. Goodbye, Tracy, I said, ending the call. I had one more short meeting about a lab issue and called our contractor to resolve it. I arrived home early, knowing Friday afternoons are usually quiet. Realizing she might not want to cook, I picked up Chick-fil-A for dinner and texted her. She arrived shortly after I did. I grabbed Bobby from her car and carried him inside. She hugged me as I held him. I set him in his high chair and helped feed him. Babies can be messy eaters, and Bobby was at the stage where he liked to throw food. She thanked me for the takeout. We chatted and talked happily with Bobby even as she cried. I spent the evening with Bobby, not leaving his side until he was asleep. He was my focus and reason for enduring the situation. Later, I found Tracy in the living room, looking over the divorce papers. She took a deep breath to calm herself before speaking. I'm sorry, Brian, okay? Is that what you wanted to hear? She asked, her voice trembling. Honestly, it's the first apology since this started. What exactly are you apologizing for, Tracy? I asked, my tone stern. I'm sorry you saw those pictures and found out the way you did. I can only imagine how uncomfortable it was for you, she said, trying to sound sincere. So you're sorry I found out? Not sorry you cheated? Got it, I replied, feeling the anger rise. Don't say that. Elliot said, once you see the benefits of our group, you'd accept it. You'd have the freedom to be with other women just like I am with other men, she explained, desperately trying to justify her actions. Of course, that's what he said. You and Elliot both failed to consult me about infidelity. It's a shame you trust his words over mine. He doesn't know me or our marriage, and apparently neither do you, I said, feeling betrayed. Look, I realize now I acted wrongly. You're right, I should have talked to you first. Elliot told me that if I had approached you, things would have gone smoothly. He's convinced you'll come around, but now I'm not sure. Why don't you call off the divorce and let's get back to normal? She pleaded. Normal? That train is derailed. You blew it up when you cheated. Just sign the papers and let's move on with our lives, I said, feeling resolute. You don't want Bobby to end up in a single-parent family calling another man daddy. No man wants that for his son. Reconciliation is the best option, she argued. I wouldn't want him to call another woman mom if you remarried after a divorce, I countered. That's true. You should have thought about all this before you broke your vows, I said, my voice cold. It would hurt to hear him call another man daddy, but it's better than living in a house full of lies and deceit. I wouldn't be part of your group of infidelity. They may be attractive, but they are disgusting to me. I can never be intimate with you again, Tracy. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, I said, my words laced with finality. You're just saying that to hurt me, and it really hurts. One point, Brian, she said, her voice breaking. What if I gave up the idea completely? Swore I'd never get involved again? What if I turned my back on them as friends? I'm desperate. You and Bobby are the best things in my life. I'm sorry you think I've turned my back on us, but it's not true. I value you two above anything else, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. I hear your words, Tracy, but I don't believe you. You've already proven yourself to be a liar. I can't trust you anymore. Just sign the papers and let's get this over with, I said, my voice firm. I'll never sign those papers. I don't want a divorce, and I will fight you every step of the way, no matter how long it takes. I may have lost you now, Brian, but I want you back. I'll crawl to you on my hands and knees until you take me back, she vowed, her determination evident. Too bad you didn't have enough faith in us to stay true to your vows. Once a cheater, always a cheater. That's how I'll always see you, I quipped. She started sobbing, realizing the difficulty ahead. What now? She asked. I hope you don't expect me to leave. I'm staying here with Bobby. We have nowhere else to go, she mumbled. You're right. Bobby is my whole world now. I don't want to be away from him. That's why I'll stay here during the divorce. I won't get in your way. I don't need you to do my laundry, cook, or clean. You take care of your needs, I'll take care of mine, and we'll both take care of Bobby. Just don't touch me. You're disgusting to me. Now, we will coexist until the divorce is final, but there will be no reconciliation, I stated firmly. Her hope turned to dejection. I heard you, Brian, but divorce is a long road and a lot can happen. I'm going to get you back, honey. I swear I will, she declared. As long as you keep hanging out with your friends, you won't have a chance. I won't socialize with them again. If you ever bring one of your lovers here, you and he will regret it. Is that clear? I warned. Of course, sweetheart. I'll turn my back on them. If that's what it takes, do you want me to quit my job and be a full-time mom? She asked, trying to find a way to mend things. No, it's too late for that. Besides, if you did, I'd just be paying more in child support in the divorce, I responded bluntly. She didn't like my response but kept a cheerful smile. I decided to treat this as a temporary business arrangement. Nothing would stop me from spending time with my son. For a few weeks, we communicated politely, saying only what was necessary. Surprisingly, we agreed to several suggestions from my attorney. I would pay the rent if Tracy paid the utilities. I canceled all utilities in our joint names and reissued them in hers. Both our cars were paid off, so we each paid for our own gas and insurance. We took care of our own meals, so there was no need to share groceries. Financial independence was easier than I expected. Since I still paid most expenses, she accepted it. I transferred half of our savings to a new account in my name and left the rest in hers. She was unpleasant for a few days, but soon realized I was just enforcing the divorce terms she refused to sign. Tracy made every effort to engage me in conversation. I was always polite and never refused unless she got personal. I never asked her for anything or started conversations. One day, while looking for socks in my desk drawer, I realized I hadn't seen the 3 pictures of Tracy and her lover. I urgently searched all the drawers but couldn't find them. I knew who had taken them. Examining the lock on my door, I noticed fine scratches, suggesting she had a locksmith make a key. The next day, I bought 2 new identical locks for the bedroom and bathroom doors and kept the keys hidden. She didn't want me to know she could access my room, and I didn't want her to know she couldn't anymore. Her continued betrayal confirmed my decision to divorce was right. I wondered if she'd lie about her date with Elliot. After a few months of doubt, she began asking me to take her out or do couple activities. I always declined politely. She was getting nervous, missing her friends, but remembered her promise not to socialize with them. Then I started getting calls and messages from them, inviting me out or offering to stay away. I blocked each number without responding. In mid-December, she informed me she was having dinner with her friend Cassidy on Saturdays if I didn't mind watching Bobby. I agreed as long as she didn't bring anyone into the house. I joined my employer's bowling league on those Saturday nights, enjoying myself and the attention Bobby got from the ladies. It was much better than sitting at home wondering about Tracy. One day, I got home later than Tracy, and she asked where I had been with Bobby. I told her the truth. She asked to come along next time, and I told her honestly that I only left the house when she did. This upset her, but pleasing Tracy was no longer my concern. She often asked how we could be a loving couple again if I never gave her a chance. She never signed the divorce papers, which were supposed to take a year. 6 months later, my attorney, B. Thorne, informed me that Tracy's lawyer had successfully argued for 10 mandatory marriage counseling sessions, 2 a week. I had to attend and answer every question the counselor asked. I asked if I could repeat the same short sentence for every question. B. said as long as it was relevant to our marriage, it was fine. I thanked her and hung up. Tracy's lawyer ensured the counselor favored the wife and vilified the husband. I didn't care what the therapist thought as long as I followed the law. To every question and statement from Tracy and the therapist, I replied, I don't want to stay married to a promiscuous woman. Soon, they were both frustrated and angry. Despite the verbal abuse from both women, I remained calm and polite. After the 5th session, the therapist canceled the remaining sessions, calling them unproductive. The following months passed without change. I spent every spare minute with Bobby, strengthening our bond. 4 days before the divorce hearing, Tracy moved out with Bobby, and I was served with a restraining order. B contacted me with bad news. B, you know me better than that. Not one word is true, I said, trying to keep my composure. Okay, I needed to hear it from you. I will fight for you, but it will be hard without evidence. Has she provided all the information needed to investigate her allegations? B asked, her tone serious. Yes, I have the details in a folder in my office, I replied. Email me the information. Remember, you cannot contact her or your son until I tell you otherwise. If she calls, hang up immediately. Understood? B instructed. Got it, I repeated. 2 days later, I walked into the house after work and was shocked to see Tracy at the kitchen table. Her car wasn't there, so she must have come with someone else. My first impulse was to leave to avoid violating the restraining order, but she called out, Brian, turn around and listen if you want to see Bobby again. She had my attention. I just stared at her, keeping my distance. You don't have to say a word, just listen, she said. I stayed calm and non-confrontational. First, hand me your cell phone so I can turn it off, she demanded. I placed it on the table. She picked it up and turned it off to ensure no recording. I tried to talk you down, but you were stubborn. I had to resort to desperate measures. How does it feel to be on the other side? I claimed we had sex to turn back the clock, but Elliot convinced me to have a backup plan in case your lawyer objected. So I made up a story about you hitting me. We both know you never touched me, but I needed full custody of Bobby, leaving you with little time with him. It's cruel, but it gives me leverage. If you cancel the divorce and agree to join our group of friends, I'll lift the restraining order, move in, and we can resume our marriage. Bobby wouldn't be in a single-parent family. What's not to like? I promise you'll get used to it. What do you say, Brian? Live in the real world with me. You'll have a good time. She hit me where it hurt the most, my son. Nothing else in the world means as much to me as he does. I'll answer as soon as I can. For now, please leave, I insisted. She smirked as she walked past me, knowing she had leverage. I waited until I heard the door close. Looking out the window, I saw a shiny Lexus pull up, driven by Elliot Franklin. He must really want her in his group. I had a lot to think about. B informed me my presence at the divorce hearing wasn't required, but I wanted to be there. As I left the men's room heading to the courtroom, Tracy appeared and hissed, You had your chance, you bastard. I'll tear you to pieces in there. Your son will never know your name and will call another man father. I will marry a real man who trusts and believes in me. She spat in my face and hurried away. Onlookers stared, wondering what I had done. I wiped my face with a handkerchief and entered the courtroom, sitting in the back. I hoped my lawyer was as good as her reputation. While waiting, I listened to other divorce cases and noticed those representing themselves were at a disadvantage. Our case wasn't heard until 1 p.m., making for a long day. Tracy testified first, detailing the alleged assaults with dates, times, and locations. She sought custody, child support, alimony, and maybe even jail time for me. Despite her tearful testimony, my attorney B remained calm, drawing flowers in the margins of her notes. Tracy's lawyer painted me as a violent and unsuitable parent, claiming Tracy had tried to reconcile and that my jealousy destroyed our marriage. After Tracy's lawyer finished, B began her questioning. I want to confirm that you're certain of the dates, times, and locations of the alleged attacks. Could you be mistaken, Mrs. Wilson? B asked. No, ma'am. My attorney told me to document everything and I wrote it all on a calendar, Tracy responded confidently. So you swear under oath that your allegations are accurate and true? B pressed. Yes, ma'am. The truth must be told, Tracy responded tearfully. No further questions, Your Honor, B said. You may step down, Mrs. Wilson. Thank you, Judge Cor Feldman advised Tracy. She and her attorney seemed stunned that B didn't question her more thoroughly. Tracy's smirk said it all. She thought she had won. She was ready to turn my son against me, and the thought made me shudder. Your Honor, I would like to call Mr. James McMahon to the stand to testify, B requested. The judge nodded, and a plain man took the seat. Tracy and her lawyer conferred, looking puzzled. Please state your full name for the record, B asked. James Winford McMahon. Thank you, Mr. McMahon. May I call you James? B inquired. Jim, please, he responded. Thank you, Jim. Can you tell the court where you work and the nature of your business? B asked. I own and operate McMahon Investigative and Security Services, Jim explained. Jim, how did you meet my client, Mr. Wilson? B continued. He approached me about 14 months ago, concerned about his wife, Mrs. Tracy Wilson. He suspected infidelity, but had no proof. We offer private investigative services to confirm such suspicions, and he used our services, Jim answered. What did you discover during your surveillance of Mrs. Wilson? B asked. We gathered evidence of her infidelity and provided him with 3 photographs of her in bed with another man, Jim stated. Were those the only existing copies of her dating? B asked. No, ma'am. We store all photos and videos in secure cloud storage and maintain the originals. Mr. Wilson only received copies, Jim clarified. And do you have other copies of these images? B asked. Yes, right here. They are copies of the uncorrupted originals, Jim confirmed. Thank you, Jim. Your Honor, we would like to admit these 3 photographs into evidence, B requested. The judge accepted the photos, reviewed them, and handed them to the bailiff for processing. Thank you, Your Honor. Jim, was that the end of your association with Mr. Wilson? B asked. No, ma'am. He was concerned the affair might be ongoing and asked for guidance. I recommended installing hidden surveillance cameras and microphones throughout the house to monitor and record phone calls, secret meetings, and graphic images, Jim explained. And did Mr. Wilson hire your firm to do this? B inquired. Yes, ma'am. We installed the equipment the next day while Mr. and Mrs. Wilson were at work, Jim confirmed. Objection, Your Honor? Tracy's attorney protested. I request that all evidence obtained through those hidden cameras be declared inadmissible. Mr. Wilson could have easily altered those recordings to smear my client. Judge Cor Feldman looked at B. Before I rule on your objection, I'd like to find out if there are grounds for it. Attorney Thorne. Thank you, Your Honor, B replied. Jim, can you explain the nature and type of surveillance system installed in Mr. Wilson's home? All cameras transmit data wirelessly to a laptop hidden under the house, which is connected to a wired Ethernet hub, Jim explained. The data is streamed to our secure cloud servers. Mr. Wilson does not have access to the raw records. The laptop only stores the web address to which the content is sent. The only way to access these files is to contact my firm. We ensure the chain of evidence is constantly monitored. Mr. Wilson's only involvement is the monthly replacement of the camera batteries. Judge Feldman smiled at Jim and nodded. I've seen you in my courtroom before, Mr. McMahon. Your firm has an excellent reputation. The objection is overruled. Thank you, Your Honor, B responded, turning back to Jim. She continued, Jim, you heard Tracy Wilson's testimony accusing my client of assault. Here are the dates and times of the alleged assaults. Do you think her accusations have any merit? No, ma'am, they don't, Jim replied confidently. What makes you so sure? B asked. When we reviewed the recordings from those dates, there were no incidents of violence. Mr. Wilson was happily playing with his son, and Tracy Wilson was alone in another room. The house was peaceful at the times of the alleged assaults. Tracy and her attorney avoided eye contact, focusing on the floor. Jim, can you provide additional information regarding her allegations? B prompted. Yes. I have a transcript of a phone call Tracy made the day before she moved, Jim stated. She talked about hating to see her husband treated this way and mentioned someone else punching her up so she could blame him. She planned to use this as leverage against him. Objection, Your Honor. That's hearsay, Tracy's attorney interjected. I can provide the original tapes. The transcript is an accurate reflection of her words, Jim offered. Tracy's lawyer did not object further. Thank you, Jim. No further questions, Your Honor, B said, and sat down. Judge Feldman then addressed Tracy's attorney. Would you like to question this witness? Defeated, Tracy's attorney replied. No questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. McMahon. You may leave the room, Judge Feldman said. Thank you, Jim responded, and then left the courtroom. After Jim took his seat, the judge continued. It's clear that an innocent man is being falsely accused to sway the court for full custody. Mrs. Wilson has perjured herself, a third-degree felony punishable by up to 36 months in prison. This transcript will be forwarded to the district attorney for possible prosecution. I grant full custody of Bobby Wilson to his father, Brian Wilson. Tracy Wilson will have visitation rights at Mr. Wilson's discretion. Mr. Wilson, please be generous with visitation, as your child needs his mother. I nodded in agreement. As for alimony, I award $1,000 per month to Tracy Wilson for 42 months. Each of you will keep your automobiles. The checking and savings accounts will be divided equally based on the balances as of the divorce petition filing date. Each party will retain their retirement accounts. Since Mr. Wilson has primary custody, the court will not award child support. Mr. Wilson, do you wish to stay in your current residence or move? Judge Feldman asked. I stood up. Your Honor, I don't want to live there any longer than necessary. Tracy can keep renting the house. I'm moving out. Very well, Mr. Wilson. The lease will be left to Mrs. Wilson, Judge Feldman confirmed. Tracy staggered to her feet. You have 8 hours to return the child to Mr. Wilson. If you refuse, you will be held in contempt of court. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, she said tearfully. Good. All restraining orders are lifted, and I grant the petition for divorce in Wilson v. Wilson. You will both receive divorce decrees within 30 days, Tracy cried, realizing she had lost her family. She turned to comply with the judge's order. Brian, I'll bring Bobby to your place tonight after dinner. I'd like to be with him for a few more hours, Tracy said, turning to me. That's not necessary, Tracy. I've already found a new apartment, and will move there as soon as I leave here. I handed her a piece of paper. Here's the address. Bring Bobby tomorrow at noon. I'll be settled in by then. She nodded sadly. I'm sorry this isn't the outcome I wanted. Well, now you can have the interesting love life you wanted without me. Good luck with your next open marriage, I said sarcastically. She didn't respond. Brian, thank you. For what? I asked, surprised. For not going after Elliot and Gail Franklin. They are wonderful people. Too bad you'll never know them like I did, she said. No problem. I have no interest in Elliot or Gail Franklin, but I am interested in your company. I found out they have a strict non-fraternization policy. Tomorrow I'll be suing your company, claiming violations of their policy destroyed my marriage and almost cost me my son. Ronald Hensley will be named as the main culprit. Apparently he slept with a dozen female employees. He's your manager, right? Tracy looked shocked. As it turns out, Ronald has a wife, Lydia, and 2 children. I don't know if she knows about his antics, but I'll make sure she does, including his relationship with Rita Consuela, or as you know her, Gail. But why? His wife and children don't deserve this, she pleaded. Neither did Bobby, I replied coldly. Why? He destroyed my marriage. Why shouldn't I destroy his? He almost took my son from me. Why shouldn't his children know the truth? Even now, you defend him. If you stick around, Tracy, you might get your dream man. He could be divorced within a year. The downside is, he might also be unemployed, just like your call center girlfriends. Their silence about Ronald's behavior also violates company policy. You want us all fired? How am I going to support myself now? She objected. Oh, don't worry, your job is safe. I promised your company I wouldn't publicize this as long as they kept you on staff. You might start your own group of followers. Just imagine how wonderful your life will be without me in the way. Once you explain how infidelity strengthened our marriage, the ladies will be eager to join. You might have trouble hiring another manager, but maybe one of the husbands will step up. Imagine all the exciting possibilities, I said. But why are you protecting my job and firing everyone else? She asked. Because Bobby needs a mother in his life. It's not a dream job and it doesn't pay much, but it's enough so you don't have to rely on me for money. When Bobby asks how I treated you in the divorce, I want to say I was fair. If you tell him otherwise, I'll show him the proof. Tracy and her friends didn't know I had known her lover's real name from the start. My private investigator did an excellent job. An engineer always approaches a problem with knowledge. If we don't have the answer, we find someone who does. B, my lawyer, sued Tracy's call center for $1.5 million and settled for a tidy sum. She kept $250,000 and the rest went to me. I wrote Tracy a check for $42,000. Paying my child support obligations in full with plenty left over to build my dream home. Word spread quickly at work, and many single ladies saw me as a potential catch, but after this roller coaster, I'm going to focus on Bobby for a while before dating again. Free at last. My stepmom accused me of taking her diamond necklace. But when the truth was revealed, the look on her face was priceless. I, 19 female, never thought I'd be posting here, but I'm at my wit's end and need some outside perspective. This whole situation has me questioning everything, and I just don't know what to do anymore. For some background, my parents divorced when I was 12. It wasn't a messy split or anything, they just grew apart. My dad remarried 2 years ago to Sarah, 38 female. At first, things were okay between us. We weren't best friends or anything, but we were civil. That all changed a few days ago. Last week was Sarah's birthday. My dad, being the generous guy he is, bought her this really expensive diamond necklace. I'm talking seriously fancy, probably cost more than my car. Sarah was over the moon about it, showing it off to everyone who'd look. The drama started 2 days after her birthday. I was at their house just hanging out and doing some laundry. My apartment's washer is broken. Sarah came storming into the living room, face red and eyes wild. She started yelling at me, asking where her necklace was. I was completely confused and told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She didn't believe me. She kept insisting that I must have taken it, that I was jealous of her and wanted the necklace for myself. I tried to stay calm and told her again that I hadn't touched her necklace, let alone stolen it, but she wouldn't listen. My dad came home in the middle of this and tried to calm things down. He asked Sarah to explain what was going on, and she told him that her necklace was missing from their bedroom. She said she'd last seen it that morning before going to work, and now it was gone. And apparently, I was the only one who'd been in the house all day. I told my dad that I hadn't even been in their bedroom. I'd just been in the living room and doing laundry in the basement. But Sarah kept insisting that I must have taken it. She said things like, "Who else could it be?" and "She's always been jealous of me." That last part really hurt. I've never been jealous of Sarah. Sure, we're not super close, but I've always tried to be respectful of her relationship with my dad. I even got her a nice birthday gift. Nothing as fancy as the necklace, but it was thoughtful. My dad tried to mediate, but he was clearly torn. He didn't want to accuse me, but he also couldn't ignore his wife's certainty. He asked me if I was sure I hadn't seen the necklace or moved it by accident. I told him I was absolutely certain. Sarah then demanded that I empty my pockets and show them my bag. I was so shocked and hurt that they'd even consider this, but I did it just to prove my innocence. Of course, there was nothing there. This wasn't enough for Sarah. She insisted that I must have hidden it somewhere in the house or taken it to my apartment. She wanted to search my car and my apartment. At this point, I was holding back tears. I couldn't believe this was happening. My dad, to his credit, said that was going too far. He told Sarah they needed to calm down and think about this rationally, but Sarah was having none of it. She kept accusing me, saying things like, "You've never accepted me as part of this family, and you're trying to sabotage our marriage." I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my stuff and left, telling them to call me when they found the necklace. As I was leaving, I heard Sarah tell my dad that if he didn't do something about this, she'd call the police and report me for theft. I drove home in tears, feeling betrayed and hurt. I've always had a good relationship with my dad, and I thought things were okay with Sarah. Now I feel like I'm being treated like a criminal in my own family. The next day, my dad called. He apologized for how things had escalated, but asked if I was absolutely sure I hadn't taken the necklace. He said he believed me, but he had to ask. I told him again that I hadn't touched it and that I was hurt that they'd even consider this. He sighed and said he'd talk to Sarah again, try to calm her down. He asked me to be patient and give her some time to cool off. I agreed, but I was still upset. Over the next few days, things just got worse. Sarah started posting on social media about how someone had stolen her birthday gift, heavily implying it was me without actually naming me. Some of our mutual family friends started messaging me, asking what was going on. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to badmouth Sarah, but I also didn't want people thinking I was a thief. I just told them it had been a misunderstanding and that hopefully it would be resolved soon. My mom got wind of what was happening and was furious. She wanted to confront Sarah and my dad, but I begged her not to. I was afraid it would just make things worse. A week has passed now and the necklace still hasn't turned up. Sarah is still convinced I took it. She's now refusing to have me in their house and has told my dad that he needs to choose between us. My dad is stuck in the middle. He says he believes me, but he also doesn't think Sarah is lying about the necklace being missing. He suggested that maybe I took it by accident or moved it without realizing it. I know he's trying to find a solution that doesn't involve either his wife or daughter being a liar, but it's still hurtful. I've racked my brain trying to think if there's any way I could have moved the necklace without realizing it, but I know I didn't. I wasn't even in their bedroom that day. I've suggested that maybe it was misplaced or that someone else could have taken it. But Sarah is adamant that it was in her jewelry box that morning, and that I'm the only one who could have accessed it. The whole situation is tearing me apart. I feel like I'm losing my family over something I didn't do. I can't sleep. I can't focus on my studies. And I'm constantly anxious about what's going to happen next. I've thought about just buying a replacement necklace to end this whole thing, but I know that would be seen as an admission of guilt. Plus, I couldn't afford something like that anyway. My friends have been supportive, telling me to stand my ground and not let Sarah bully me, but they don't understand how hard it is to have your family doubt you like this. The worst part is I feel like this has permanently damaged my relationship with my dad. He says he believes me, but I can tell he has doubts. And every time he asks me to just think really hard about whether I might have moved the necklace, it feels like another little betrayal. I've always been close to my dad, even after the divorce. He was the one who taught me to always tell the truth, to stand up for what's right. And now it feels like he's questioning everything he knows about me. As for Sarah, I don't know if our relationship can ever recover from this. Even if the necklace turns up tomorrow, the fact that she was so quick to accuse me and so unwilling to consider any other possibility has shown me how she really feels about me. Part of me wants to just walk away from the whole situation, to tell my dad that I'm done, that I can't be around people who think I'm capable of something like this. But I know that would only make me look guilty, and I don't want to lose my relationship with my dad. I feel stuck. If I keep trying to defend myself, I look defensive. If I stop engaging, I look guilty. There's no winning move here. I've started to fear my phone ringing, afraid it'll be my dad with more questions or Sarah with more accusations. I've stopped going to family gatherings because I can't stand the whispers and sidelong glances. My mom keeps telling me to stand up for myself more forcefully, to demand an apology from Sarah. But I'm afraid that being more aggressive will just make things worse. I don't want to force my dad to choose sides more than he already has to. I've even had nightmares about the necklace. In my dreams, I find it in my pocket or in my room, even though I know it's not possible. I wake up in a panic, afraid that somehow it's true. The rational part of me knows that the necklace has to be somewhere in their house. It has to have been misplaced or overlooked, but with each passing day, it seems less and less likely that it'll be found. At this point, I don't even care about proving my innocence anymore. I just want this nightmare to be over. I want my family back. I want to be able to hug my dad without feeling like he's wondering if I'm a liar. I want to be able to go to family dinners without feeling like a pariah. But I also know that I can't just give in and say I did it when I didn't. That would be betraying myself and everything my parents taught me about honesty. So now I'm turning to you, Reddit. Should I have done something differently? Is there anything I can do to fix this situation? I feel lost and alone, and I could really use some outside perspective. Update. Hey everyone. I'm back with an update on the situation with my stepmom and the missing diamond necklace. A lot has happened, and I'm still processing everything, but I wanted to share what went down. It had been about 3 weeks since my last post, and things hadn't gotten any better. Sarah was still accusing me of stealing her necklace, and my relationship with my dad was strained. I had stopped going to their house altogether, which hurt because I used to spend a lot of time there. The breakthrough came completely by accident. I was at the local shopping center just trying to distract myself with some window shopping. As I was walking past a coffee shop, I saw a familiar face through the window. It was Sarah, at first. I thought about just walking away. I didn't want another confrontation. But then I noticed she was sitting with a man I didn't recognize. They seemed to be having an intense conversation. I know it wasn't right, but I couldn't help myself. I found a spot where I could see them without being obvious and watched. Sarah looked nervous, kept glancing around like she was afraid of being seen. Then, to my shock, I saw Sarah reach into her purse and pull out a small black velvet box. My heart started racing. It looked exactly like the box my dad had given her the necklace in. Sarah handed the box to the man. He opened it, looked inside, then closed it quickly and put it in his pocket. They talked for a few more minutes, then the man got up and left. I was shaking. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. Without thinking, I had taken a few pictures with my phone. They weren't great quality, but you could clearly see Sarah and the man, and Sarah handing over the box. I didn't confront Sarah. I was too scared and confused. Instead, I called my dad. My voice was shaking as I asked him to meet me outside the shopping center. He must have heard the urgency in my voice because he agreed immediately. When my dad arrived, I was a mess. I was crying and shaking. He looked really worried and asked me what was wrong. I took a deep breath and told him everything I had seen. At first, he looked confused, then angry, then just sad. He asked to see the pictures I had taken. As he looked at them, his face got redder and redder. He asked me if I was absolutely sure about what I had seen. I told him I was. The box looked exactly like the one the necklace came in. and Sarah had been acting so suspiciously. My dad was quiet for a long moment, then he said we needed to go home and talk to Sarah. I was scared, but I agreed. We drove to their house in silence. When we got there, Sarah was already home. She looked surprised to see us both, especially me. She started to say something about me not being welcome, but my dad cut her off. He asked her very calmly where she had been that afternoon. Sarah said she had been running errands. My dad nodded and then asked her if she had met anyone while she was out. Sarah hesitated for a second before saying no. That's when my dad brought out his phone and showed her the pictures I had taken. The color drained from Sarah's face. What followed was the most intense conversation I've ever been part of. My dad asked Sarah over and over to explain what was in the pictures. Sarah tried to deflect, saying I must have photoshopped them or that it wasn't what it looked like, but my dad wasn't having it. He kept pushing, asking who the man was, what was in the box, and why she had lied about meeting someone. With each question, Sarah got more and more flustered. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only about 30 minutes, Sarah broke down. She started crying and admitted everything. The necklace had never been stolen. The day after her birthday, she had taken it to a friend's house for safekeeping. The man in the coffee shop was this friend, and she had been picking up the necklace from him. When my dad asked why she had done this, Sarah's answer made me feel sick. She said she had never liked me coming to their house. She felt like I was intruding on her time with my dad. She thought if she accused me of stealing something valuable, my dad would stop inviting me over so much. She said she had planned to find the necklace in a few weeks and claim it must have been misplaced. She never expected things to go this far or for my dad to get so upset. My dad was furious. I had never seen him so angry. He told Sarah that what she had done was inexcusable. He said she had not only hurt me but had made him doubt his own daughter. Sarah tried to apologize to me, but I couldn't even look at her. I was so hurt and angry. All the stress and pain of the last few weeks came rushing back, and I started crying again. My dad told Sarah to go and get the necklace from her friend immediately. She left, still crying. While she was gone, my dad hugged me and apologized over and over for not believing me completely. He said he should have trusted me and that he had let me down. When Sarah came back with the necklace, my dad took it from her and put it in his pocket. He told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that he needed time to think about their relationship. He then turned to me and said I could come and stay at the house whenever I wanted, for as long as I wanted. But I was too hurt. I told him I needed some time and space. I left their house feeling a mix of emotions. I was relieved that the truth had finally come out, but I was also deeply hurt. The fact that Sarah had deliberately tried to drive a wedge between me and my dad was hard to process. Over the next few days, I got a lot of calls and messages. My dad called multiple times to check on me and to apologize again. He told me that he and Sarah were going to start couples counseling, but he understood if I didn't want to be around her for a while. Sarah tried to call and message me too, but I wasn't ready to talk to her. Her messages were full of apologies and explanations, but they all felt hollow to me. My mom was furious when I told her what had happened. She wanted to confront Sarah herself, but I asked her not to. I didn't want to create more drama. As for me, I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about everything. I'm relieved that I've been proven innocent, but the whole experience has left me feeling betrayed and hurt. I used to split my time between my mom's house and my dad's, but for now I'm staying with my mom full time. My dad says I'm welcome anytime, but the thought of being in that house around Sarah makes me uncomfortable. I'm angry at Sarah, of course. What she did was cruel and manipulative, but I'm also angry at my dad for not believing me completely from the start. I know he was in a difficult position, but I'm his daughter. I feel like he should have trusted me more. I'm also struggling with feelings of guilt. Even though I know I didn't do anything wrong, part of me feels like I'm responsible for the problems in my dad's marriage now. I know that's not rational, but it's hard to shake. My friends have been really supportive. They've been helping me process everything and reminding me that none of this was my fault. I'm grateful for them. I've been thinking a lot about trust and family. This whole experience has made me realize how fragile trust can be and how important it is in relationships. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to trust Sarah again, and my trust in my dad has been shaken too. My dad has suggested family therapy for all of us, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet. I think I need more time to process everything on my own first. I've also been dealing with some anxiety since all this happened. I find myself doubting my own memory sometimes or worrying that people don't believe me about other things. I'm thinking about starting individual therapy to help deal with these feelings. As for the future, I'm not sure what it holds. My dad says he wants to work things out with Sarah, but he also says that his relationship with me is a priority. I don't want to make him choose, but I also don't know if I can have a relationship with him if Sarah is still in the picture. For now, I'm focusing on myself. I'm throwing myself into my studies and spending time with friends who I know I can trust. I'm trying to rebuild my self-confidence and remember that I'm not the person Sarah tried to paint me as. I'm also learning to stand up for myself more. This experience has taught me that it's important to defend yourself when you know you're right, even if it's uncomfortable or difficult. I've had a few people suggest that I should press charges against Sarah for false accusation, but I don't think I want to go down that road. As hurt as I am, I don't think involving the legal system would make me feel any better. My dad has been asking when I'll come back to stay at the house, but I'm not ready yet. I've told him I need more time and space. He seems to understand, but I can tell he's hurt too. I'm also dealing with the reactions of extended family and family friends. Word has gotten out about what really happened, and I'm getting a lot of messages of support, but it's also embarrassing to know that so many people know about this personal drama. In a way, I feel like I've lost my second home. I used to love spending time at my dad's house, but now the thought of being there just makes me anxious. I'm mourning that loss even as I'm angry about the situation that caused it. I'm trying to focus on the positives. The truth came out, I was vindicated, and I learned some important lessons about standing up for myself. But it's hard not to dwell on the negatives too. I'm not sure what the long-term effects of all this will be on my relationship with my dad. I love him, and I know he loves me, but this has definitely created a rift between us. I hope we can repair it over time. As for Sarah, I honestly don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her. What she did wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding, it was a deliberate attempt to hurt me and damage my relationship with my dad. That's not something I can easily get past. So that's where things stand now. The necklace has been found, the truth has come out, but the fallout is still ongoing. I'm taking things one day at a time and trying to focus on healing. Thank you to everyone who supported me in my original post. Your kind words and advice meant a lot to me during a really difficult time. I'll post another update if anything significant changes.
I'm a disabled veteran who, unfortunately, lost my job due to the ongoing pandemic. As a result, I'm at home while my wife continues to work. Our son was born shortly before COVID appeared, and he's now a year old. During this time, I've taken on all household responsibilities, from cooking and cleaning to doing the laundry, to ensure everything runs smoothly. I've also been looking after our 9-year-old and 1-year-old kids, helping with their schoolwork and preparing their meals. My ex-wife and I had a tough upbringing, and we both wanted to give our children the kind of upbringing we missed out on. However, she had our last child to try to save our relationship, which was failing. I supported her decision to work more for extra income, but when the pandemic started, our financial situation worsened, and we had to move in with my mother to save money and reduce her workload. I didn't know she'd been seeing someone else since March. I began to suspect in April, and by my birthday in May, I was sure. Her infidelity and lack of affection left me feeling completely alone. Now, my kids and I live with my mom, while she moved in with her boyfriend. It's been almost a month, but the pain of separation still lingers. My daughter has distanced herself from her mother, and my son shows no interest in her, not even asking for basic things like milk. They seem to have moved on from the initial pain, but I still feel terribly lonely. It's like walking beside someone, sharing a story, and then turning around to find that they've disappeared. 14 years feel like they've gone to waste. To cope with this, I've focused on training, and am proud to say that I've finally dropped below 200 pounds after many years. Now, my main motivation is to keep moving forward for the sake of my children and deal with my emotions. I've also started writing poetry, but since she kept lying about her ongoing connection with the other person, I realized it's pointless to communicate with her. Despite the lingering pain, I hold hope for the future. Finding a lawyer is tough because my mom has trouble finding someone she can trust. I want to be careful and have full trust in the lawyer's professional abilities. Though my brother and mother have been a tremendous source of support through all my difficulties, I'm seeking advice here. She left me for a colleague, which initially led me to plan a separation agreement and consult a lawyer, but the high cost prevented that. I've taken a positive step by attending consultations for myself and my daughter, which is a good development. To prepare for school, I've decided that she'll study reading and math workbooks to get back on track with her education. Meanwhile, I'm in thought and seeking advice. My soon-to-be ex-wife is currently in a psychiatric hospital, and while I hope for her recovery, I'm not sure it's wise for her to become more involved in our children's lives. She chose her partner over our 9-year-old and 1-year-old kids, and I'm concerned she might do the same with them at 10 and 2. While I initially wanted to support her, I'm now focused on my own recovery and not maintaining contact with her, as her progress could hinder mine. I genuinely want her to get better, but I don't want to be present in this situation. Does that make me a bad person? I refrain from asking about her hospitalization reasons, but based on my past experience as a firefighter, I think it may be related to doing bad things. I plan to start the trial as soon as possible and stay by her side, sincerely hoping for her recovery, but I can't hide my anger at her for putting me in such a difficult situation. My children don't know the current situation, which deeply concerns me. To keep ourselves occupied, I organized a drawing evening, trying to understand why life has to be so tough. I see that our little son has suffered greatly from this ordeal. He's developed separation anxiety, which increases every time his mother visits him. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to notice these problems appearing suddenly after several weeks of absence. This situation is unbearable, and dealing with it alone is incredibly difficult. I miss the person she used to be, and it's a tough journey. Our daughter still unconditionally follows her mother's example. She admires her and wants to be like her. I understand that she feels some resentment due to the current circumstances, but I can't fully grasp her emotions. Over the past 2 months, my ex has visited them 4 or 5 times, even allowing them to spend the night at her new place. However, her messages to our daughter are one-sided, with all the conversations initiated by her. Upon reflection, I realized that I had overlooked these signs for a long time. It seemed like our daughter constantly showed disinterest, barely noticing my presence and responding with only one word. I chose to ignore this, but now I see that all the signs were there. Her mobile phone was always face down, and she often found excuses to go back to work, showing a lack of interest in communicating with me. During that time, I played the role of a babysitter, while she enjoyed parties and a full-fledged relationship with her boyfriend. I finally realized this on my birthday, when she did absolutely nothing, even though she had always shown care and effort. This led me to start an investigation, and I discovered she had been dating her colleague since March. In February, we went on a family trip, and at that time I thought everything was fine. But I've learned to trust my instincts and not be blinded by her actions again. Despite this, I genuinely hope she finds well-being and happiness for the sake of our children. I remain committed to prioritizing our children. In an effort to maintain a healthy co-parenting dynamic, I've decided to avoid contact with her and focus solely on our children's issues. Unfortunately, she keeps trying to reach out to me as if nothing has changed. Despite my initial attempts to respond politely, I've become increasingly upset and responded with anger and hostility as I'm not ready to talk to her yet. Before cutting off contact, I frequently sent her photos of our children, hoping she'd understand she was leaving. It appears her relationship with her partner didn't work out as expected, and she's now in the hospital. She wants to play a more active role in our children's lives, but it's challenging since she lives an hour away and has a busy schedule. I used to support her after work, but now I refuse to be her backup. I know my worth, and I deserve more than being someone's second or third choice. Once she emotionally recovers, we can work on a healthy co-parenting dynamic. I won't save her now as I couldn't do it before. After speaking with her hospital doctor, I learned she'll be discharged soon. While I feel guilty, I believe she should find her own way since she chose to leave me and the children. The thought that she might do bad things herself causes me great anxiety, making it hard to breathe. Additionally, my ex's partner in love affairs tried to contact me on Facebook, but I blocked him and took a screenshot as evidence, breaking my rule of no contact just to inform my ex. She showed no interest or concern and didn't feel it was her responsibility to deal with him. Technically, it isn't. I hoped she would resolve this issue on my behalf, but instead, she explained at length how she was trying to improve the situation for the sake of our children. This incident taught me a valuable lesson. Never break the no-contact rule, even if something hurts you. I've done well with this, maintaining a month of no contact. I'm still upset that a certain person is trying to follow me, but honestly, I don't care about him at all. My anger is primarily related to the consequences of my relationship with my ex, and such situations only hinder my progress. I'm consumed by deep anger and resentment towards the woman I once thought I'd love forever. Thoughts of her often visit my mind, and every time they appear, I utter curses after them. I'm not that kind of person, never harboring ill will towards others, but my ex-wife's presence makes me furious. The hardest part is maintaining a facade of consent in front of my children. Though I refrain from mentioning her, there are times when my daughter remembers her name, and in those moments, it takes all my strength not to speak ill of my ex and remain indifferent. I don't want the person she left me for to hinder my progress. While he took my wife, I've firmly decided not to let him obstruct my path. I'm determined to protect my emotional well-being from their interference. Despite them not being very pleasant people, I want them to stay away from me and my children. On weekends, my daughter and I enjoy movie nights, and during the week, my son and I go for daily walks while his sister is at school. Being a dad brings me great joy, but it leaves me with very little time for myself. My days are filled with training, and the only adult I truly trust is my Veterans Affairs consultant. Right now, my main focus is on treating post-traumatic stress disorder. My constant thoughts about my ex make it hard for me to concentrate on my responsibilities, especially in raising our children. It's painful to realize how taken advantage of I feel. In the past, I devoted so much to support her career climb. I was by her side during her long work hours, and even gave her foot massages when she returned. All I'm left with now is a sense of worthlessness, as if my efforts meant nothing. I wonder if others are going through a similar situation, and, if so, how they're managing. Engaging in physical activities like training and kickboxing has provided some relief, though it seems like only a small part of what I need to heal. In an attempt to move forward, I registered on the Match website, even though I recognize that I'm not emotionally ready for a new relationship. Recently, I made the decision to step out of my comfort zone and be more honest with myself. Recovering from infidelity is undoubtedly a tough journey. A few months ago, I came across a book called Stop Being Mr. Nice Guy, which delves into the white knight theory and ways to overcome it. Reflecting on my past actions, I can acknowledge that I fell into some of these traps, but I don't believe that my actions were solely driven by the desire to earn knight points. After my service in the Army, I continued to maintain the uniform and ensure everything was in order. It had become second nature to me, perhaps in the hope of easing my partner's work fatigue even just a little. Ultimately, I've always been someone who likes to solve problems and find solutions, with or without her. I feel that being considerate and helping others ultimately didn't benefit me. I've always been the kind of person who leaves a situation cleaner than I found it. While serving in the fire department, I lived with other guys and learned how to clean up after myself. However, I began to realize that maybe I was too kind. But is it a bad thing to appreciate kindness? Unfortunately, it seems challenging to come across truly kind individuals, but it appears to be common to encounter pain. It's disheartening to see my ex pursuing a new lifestyle, especially when, after just 6 months, she's already seeking full custody of our children and spousal support. I'm eagerly anticipating the upcoming trial. Currently, my primary thoughts revolve around post-traumatic stress disorder, the well-being of our children, and my hidden anger towards my future ex-spouse. While I mainly focus on the first two, I wish for time to pass more quickly. I understand the importance of being present in the moment, but it's tough for me to shake off this feeling of emptiness within. Recently, my wife told me that our daughter had expressed an interest in self-mutilation due to her refusal to communicate with her. Throughout November, they didn't communicate. A few days later, a deputy sheriff called me, requesting that I surrender a firearm registered to my wife, as she's not allowed to have it. This situation makes me question whether my attempts at reconciliation are naive, even though I removed the block after she revealed her thoughts about doing bad things. Believing that such statements should be taken seriously, we resumed correspondence. However, I suspect she's still spending time with her boyfriend and using this situation as a way to spend time with our kids. Given these circumstances, I understand the need to approach her words with caution and a great deal of skepticism. Despite this, I'm uncertain about the sincerity of her intentions. If she were to end her current relationship, regardless of whether she's with him or not, I would consider reconciliation. However, I'd require her to continue with the divorce process according to plan and provide written confirmation of my full custody of our children. I've already filed my response to her divorce application, and we're currently awaiting a court date. I also suspect that she's aware of her unfavorable position in court, which may worsen her situation. She mentioned that her family no longer communicates with her, a fact I can confirm since I'm still in touch with many of them. Furthermore, she expressed a desire to find a job in our city, which I hope she'll consider. Tonight we took our kids to the movies. The therapist who's helping our daughter expressed concerns about her engaging in, so I took swift action. Even our 1-year-old child is overjoyed that his mother has returned to him. Personally, I feel emotionally distant. On the flip side, I'm using the dating app Bumble, and while I've had some decent connections, nothing serious has developed. There are a few people I'd like to form deeper connections with, but the reality is that most people aren't eager to get involved with someone responsible for raising 2 children. What's more, I worry about the possibility that after months of building a meaningful connection with someone, my daughter might reject them. To be honest, if my daughter had rejected me, I would have ended this relationship. After our breakup, my life started improving. I've been attending therapy, monitoring my diet, and even practicing kung fu. Since she left, I've experienced significant personal growth, and I'm uncertain whether it would be unwise to consider reuniting as a family. It's important to note that she's currently attending therapy and taking medication, which is a significant factor to consider. She's also expressed interest in both of us attending couples therapy. The pace at which events are unfolding feels overwhelming. If it turns out that she's pregnant with someone else's child and is trying to manipulate me into raising that child, I won't participate in such a situation. I have many thoughts and doubts swirling in my head, and I'd greatly appreciate any guidance. I'm not certain about what I want at the moment. While I do feel a desire to reconcile with her, I'm also aware of her capabilities. My daughter's well-being significantly influences my decision-making process, so I need to proceed with caution. I can't make decisions based solely on emotions, but I must admit that my children's happiness is of utmost importance to me. If I had the opportunity, I believe it would be valuable to invest another 10 years in a relationship with my ex and put in a genuine effort. It's worth mentioning that although my ex is currently employed and I am not, my status as a disabled veteran with a low rating during our marriage has prompted me to seek help from Veterans Services. They recommended an increase in my rating, which could potentially lead to me earning more than my ex. In any case, such a rating increase would be highly beneficial for me. I tend to agree that becoming the primary caregiver for our children is the more likely outcome. However, given her recent attempts at doing bad things and the fact that I had to hand over her firearm, I believe this strengthens my case for gaining more custody. It's not just about the children's well-being. It's also about the foundation I've worked hard to build. I'm on a positive life path, with or without her, and I'm determined not to look back with regrets, feeling that I didn't do everything possible to keep my family together. She claims to attend therapy 3 times a week and take medication. In our 16 years of marriage, she never engaged in self-mutilation, but after our separation, she made 3 attempts. It's challenging for me to discern what to believe. She's aware of my past as a firefighter and the traumatic situations I often encountered. It's possible that she's using this knowledge as a form of manipulation. However, based on my personal experience, even if people don't resort to ending their lives in this way, they often inflict severe physical bad influence on themselves. Memories of the blood I witnessed still haunt me, and the taste of copper remains vivid in my memory. It was incomprehensible to see a physically strong and muscular man brought to tears, standing in his undergarments, holding onto his wife. I was left in utter perplexity. I recently had a conversation with my daughter, and she expressed a desire for our family to become whole again, with all 4 of us together. I told her that I wouldn't be able to forgive her mother if she continued the relationship, and advised her not to set her hopes too high. I've realized that if I continue with the current approach, completely cutting off all contact, it will also affect the children. It seems to me that my negativity towards their mother is evident and has an impact on them. She may not understand the immense effort required for reconciliation, but that's my concern. I can't allow my ex to dictate the pace of my progress, just as I can't allow my kids to determine the outcome. Restoring our family at this point necessitates me setting an example and taking the initiative. It's crucial to demonstrate to my children that I won't succumb to emotional manipulation. Reuniting with this woman won't fix our family. It will only worsen the situation. This thought has been haunting me. How will my daughter perceive the relationship? If she witnesses it, the toxicity might persist, and if her mother leaves again, the consequences will be even more devastating. Additionally, my daughter might inadvertently attract the wrong people into her life because she has already encountered such behavior. On the other hand, this situation can serve as an opportunity to teach them that love is not perfect. It's not a typical romantic comedy scenario, but if my ex is genuinely seeking guidance from therapists, I believe we have a chance. Even if the likelihood of success is just 1%, I'm willing to attempt to restore our family. Of course, I understand perfectly well that all of this could backfire. I realize that if I don't make changes and if she doesn't improve, our relationship is undoubtedly destined to fail. However, if she continues with therapy, takes her medications, and finds self-awareness, we have a chance to overcome everything. In the future, when our children have grown up, and if we decide to go our separate ways, that's something I can accept. If we assume that we're raising them properly, following the values we've set, then I'll evaluate her actions to assess her character. She claims she's no longer involved with the AP, affair partner. She states that she's been undergoing therapy and taking medication since July, explaining that her recent lifestyle hasn't been as pleasant as I assumed, and that she's been feeling sad for several months. I tend to attribute these events to her mental health disorder, so I believe it's necessary to consult with her therapist before considering the possibility of a real reconciliation. If she's diagnosed with bipolar disorder, or if it's confirmed that it was a major depressive episode and she expresses remorse, we might have an opportunity. But if she desires an open relationship, it's better for both of us to move on. I'm truly grateful for all of you for sharing your thoughts and perspectives, as it seems you all understand the pain caused by trauma. I've come to realize that she was using manipulation to push me towards reconciliation. She informed me that after our breakup, she made 3 attempts at doing bad things, and currently, she attends therapy 3 times a week. In our individual talks and group discussions, she mentioned that she's taking medication. Even though I haven't personally spoken to her therapist, I suspect she might be struggling with high levels of depression and codependency. She expressed her intention to quit her current job and shared her desire to find a place nearby to spend more time with the children. She also mentioned how she feels a lack of family in her life. After our recent trip to the movies, she visited us several times, which brought great joy to our daughter. This made me decide to break the period of no contact. The school psychotherapist is worried that my daughter might engage in doing bad things, which is a result of issues stemming from her mother's rejection. On a positive note, my son seems to be doing well, but I can't help but miss her and wish to reunite our family. I remember how much she loved me, especially since we've been together since we were 18. Recently, she asked me out on a date, and although I agreed because she's making an effort, deep down, I understand that I'm not emotionally ready for this. It's important to emphasize that I'm committed to not having a relationship with her. If it were to come to that, I would insist on a paternity test. I won't be deceived or take responsibility for someone else's child. I've made it clear to her that I'd only consider reconciliation if we divorced and I gained full custody of the children. Obtaining 100% custody is my main goal now. With that, if she continues her relationship with her partner and complications arise, I'll have full control, and she'll be able to move on. Furthermore, I'm still active on dating apps. I won't deactivate them until I'm certain she's not seeing anyone else. Additionally, just yesterday, I felt youthful and alive. There wasn't a clear reason for my happiness, but it gave my self-esteem a boost. I usually find myself attracted to people who are a bit too tough for me. I'm sure many of you can relate to my experiences, knowing it's often an uphill battle. But I feel compelled to keep trying for the sake of my children. Yet, I'm incredibly puzzled when she says she was unhappy after our separation. It's hard to reconcile that with her actions, especially when she cheated on me and left our children for someone else. If I were younger, I might have reacted with more anger. But now I'm contemplating the possibility of reconciling with my father, despite our different problem-solving approaches. I hope this decision will lead to a positive outcome, but I'm uncertain about the future. To the best of my knowledge, there's no indication that she's pregnant, and there's no reason to suspect it. Although she appeared hesitant, she has agreed to 100% custody if we reconcile. She insists she's no longer involved with the affair partner or anyone else. But at this stage, it's challenging for me to trust her fully. We exchange apologies through text messages, and we haven't managed to have a one-on-one conversation without the children present. She's expressed regret for seeking confirmation from someone else, but hasn't directly apologized for the betrayal itself. Until she explicitly admits remorse for the betrayal, I will assume she doesn't regret it. On a positive note, she has agreed to attend couples therapy, which is a significant step, given her previous resistance to therapy. This was one of the reasons I hesitated to seek help for my post-traumatic stress disorder. I understand that significant challenges lie ahead, as my heart is still mending. But I'm determined to rebuild my family, no matter the difficulties. I sincerely make this commitment. While she may have broken her vow, I continue to hold firm to the vows I've made throughout my life. Reflecting on what I miss and cherish, I genuinely miss her unwavering dedication to caring for our children. Her caring and affectionate nature made her an exceptional mother for our daughter. I also appreciate her witty and sarcastic humor. The way she pronounces my name holds a special place in my heart, as does her unique fragrance. Her look when I'm about to make a foolish decision fills me with affection. Her belief that I'm an excellent cook brings me joy. Additionally, her ability to be kind and harmonious with others is truly admirable. Ultimately, I'm captivated by her determination to tackle unfamiliar concepts, even if she doesn't fully understand them. I realize how much I value her uniqueness, which aligns with my own. I deeply miss her presence and wholeheartedly apologize for past mistakes. If we end up in court together, the best outcome I can hope for is shared custody with her having overnight visits every weekend. However, my top priority is obtaining full custody of our children. I fully accept the responsibility for any potential setbacks, but 100% custody would provide me with peace of mind, knowing I've done everything in my power. Even with my attempts at reconciliation, I understand the importance of securing the best future for our children. I consistently felt anxiety, realizing that I was only being used as a means for her to see the children. Despite this, she visited the children only a few times and never took care of them for extended periods. I naively hoped that she could become the same mother she was to our children. But she didn't fulfill the role of a mother. Instead, she appeared as someone who feels guilty from time to time and wishes to visit the life I've built. Currently, we are not officially divorced since she filed for divorce last June, and I filed my response. Since then, I haven't received any updates from the court. I decided to wait before taking any further action because in my state, if a parent leaves and doesn't contact their children for a year, they can be accused of child abandonment. In my view, that's exactly what happened, and I hope the lawyer and the judge will agree, granting me sole custody. My dilemma is that she's trying to get better. She shows a desire to visit the children, especially our son, but seems to have refused to rebuild her relationship with her daughter. While I understand that change takes time, it's challenging for me to trust her actions and decisions. None of the above questions relate to our romantic relationship. Should I wait for a court message or take the initiative to consult with a lawyer and file a claim for termination of parental rights, seeking sole custody? If I decide to seek legal assistance, I'll be committed to taking significant steps. I must admit I acted naively, trusting this woman for so long. I genuinely believed that people have inherent goodness. Even if someone stumbles and loses their way, it doesn't mean they are entirely lost. Should I distance myself from my spouse to shield our children from additional trauma? Thankfully, my life with the children is going well. I receive online counseling at a local veterans rehabilitation center, which greatly helps me cope with post-traumatic stress disorder. Recognizing the difficulties my daughter faces, I arranged for her to meet with a counselor provided by her. Unfortunately, my little boy, at the age of 2, still misses his mother and occasionally asks about her. To comfort him, I explain that she's at work when she's not around. It takes him some time to get comfortable with her presence. I'm concerned that her continuous involvement in his life at this crucial stage might exacerbate his future problems and difficulties. Every morning we have a lovely ritual of reading and singing children's songs. Throughout the day, we engage in fun activities until his sister returns home. It's a joy to witness his progress. Every day he learns a new word, and overall, he radiates genuine happiness. In anticipation of potential consequences of abandonment at his age, I'm teaching him soothing techniques like breathing exercises and engaging hand games. As for me, I've dared to explore dating apps and met several potential partners. But I understand that I'm not yet ready for a serious relationship. For now, I take solace in focusing on my personal growth, dedicating time to exercise and therapy. I handle the upbringing and care of my children solo, even though full custody comes with some downsides. I don't expect to receive alimony from my ex-spouse, which, although I wouldn't mind, would certainly help financially. Another issue is my son possibly holding a grudge against me for not letting his mother in and not providing her with assistance. But I believe it's in the children's best interest for this dishonest and mentally unwell woman to be absent from our lives. Now, 7 months have passed. The divorce process was lengthy and painful, during which my ex-wife caused herself physical bad influence and had a long recovery. But ultimately, I've cut this woman out of my life and the lives of my children. I received a court order preventing her from approaching me and the children. She is currently in a mental health facility, and I'm doing everything I can to ensure my children lead happy lives and move on from the negative impact of their mother.
This marks my first experience. Samantha, my wife, spoke in a barely audible, soft voice, and her face turned deep red, which honestly surprised me as her bashfulness caught me off guard. I became completely captivated by her. However, our relationship hasn't always been like this. I'm Jack Andrews, an ordinary guy employed at a medical device company. In the past, I had dreams and ambitions, but I lacked the talent to pursue them, so I abandoned those dreams. My parents had high hopes for me, encouraging me to carve out my own path, leading me to where I am today. Now, I find myself without dreams or ambitions, and losing those dreams has left me feeling empty without a clear goal. Some might suggest getting married and starting a beautiful family, but unfortunately, I'm a bachelor with no girlfriend. It saddens me that I can't give my parents grandchildren, but I have no choice since I can't provide something I don't possess. As I checked the calendar, I realized that I needed to return home next week. My parents live in the same state, just a short train ride away, so it's not a major inconvenience. However, they called me with a serious tone, indicating that they had important matters to discuss. Judging by my mom's demeanor, it's clearly not a trivial matter. They are usually laid-back parents who rarely ask me to come home, so something significant must have occurred. Finally, the day arrived when I returned to my childhood home after a long absence. My parents operate a diner with their residence on the second floor and the restaurant on the first floor. When I was a kid, I used to proudly talk about taking over the family shop, but I soon realized I didn't have the cooking skills for it, so I gave up on that dream. That's why I felt reluctant about returning home. However, something felt off. The shop was usually open every day except Thursday, but the sign wasn't out. Were they closed today? I called out, "I'm home, Dad, Mom," and walked into the diner. Both of my parents were there, but they looked thinner than usual, and their faces were pale. I hurried over to them and asked, "What's going on with you two?" They explained with downcast expressions. It turned out a family restaurant had opened nearby, causing our diner to lose customers rapidly. Despite my parents' best efforts to turn things around, the customers kept dwindling. When Dad looked into why we were losing so many customers, he found out there were anonymous rumors spreading about our restaurant. People were saying they had seen cockroaches or that the diner was dirty because of its age. These strange rumors were circulating, and there was no way to stop them. Despite everything my parents did, sales kept dropping, and they ended up in debt. Even if they closed the diner, the debt remained, and in the worst case, they might have to sell our home. I saw tears of frustration in my dad's eyes, and his voice trembled. It was a side of him I had never seen before, so I couldn't help but ask, "Is there anything that can be done, at least about the debt?" The debt amounted to $80,000. Dad mumbled with his head hung low. He appeared defeated, as though he had tried everything possible to find a solution. Feeling desperate, I turned to Mom and suggested, "Can't you reach out to your friends for help?" She hesitated briefly before finally speaking up. "Well, I did talk to them," Mom began. "Actually, one of my friends mentioned she might be able to help, but there's a condition." I leaned in eagerly, ready to hear the condition. I was willing to consider any terms if there was a chance of getting assistance. However, Mom seemed reluctant to continue, keeping her head down. Encouraged by Dad, she eventually disclosed the condition. She proposed that I marry her daughter. I was taken aback. "What?" I exclaimed. "You know, I used to attend that flower arrangement class, right? That's where I met her. Her husband is the CEO of a leading company, and their daughter, Samantha, apparently hasn't found a partner, even though she wants to get married. My friend mentioned that Samantha is shy and hasn't been able to find a partner. According to her, if I marry Samantha and become part of their family, she'd be willing to help us out." Dad interjected, concerned about my future. "Jack, you have the right to choose your own partner. I don't want you to make this decision just because of our debts." But I was determined. "No, I'll accept the offer." I comforted my worried mom. I couldn't bear to witness the family business I had grown up with falling apart, and I knew I couldn't take over the business myself. If getting married was the solution to save it, I was ready to do it. Plus, Samantha happened to be a CEO's daughter, a rare opportunity for an ordinary guy like me to have such a connection. There weren't many downsides for me, so I decided to move forward. However, when I met Samantha in person, I couldn't help but have some reservations. The day I met her, I found myself thinking, I understand why she's having trouble finding a husband. She must be shy. Indeed, I noticed that Samantha's gaze often wandered away, as if she couldn't maintain direct eye contact. On the flip side, I found it hard to take my eyes off her. To put it bluntly, I couldn't help but notice her pronounced double chin, which made her appear as if she had no neck. And it wasn't just her neck. She also lacked a defined waistline. Most women have some curves, even if they're of average size, but Samantha had none. If I were to make a comparison, she reminded me of a certain boxy blue robot from the future. I don't like to judge people based on their appearance, but I couldn't deny that her physical appearance left a strong impression. If someone were to ask me if I wanted to marry her solely based on looks, I would have said no without hesitation. However, considering my current situation, I didn't feel I had the luxury to be selective. "Nice to meet you. I'm Samantha," she greeted me with shyness. "I'm Jack. Pleasure to meet you," I responded, trying to be polite. We discussed our situation further and officially became engaged a month later. Marriage was a non-negotiable requirement for repaying the debt. Although Samantha suggested that we don't force ourselves to live like a typical married couple, but find our own way to come together. So we ended up sharing a bedroom, but not a bed. The so-called wedding night hadn't happened yet. Given Samantha's physique, sharing a bed would indeed be a tight fit. Both of us were used to living alone, so it felt a bit awkward initially. But Samantha had always dreamed of being a traditional wife and made an effort. "Good morning. I tried making breakfast if you like," I offered. "Please," she said, attempting to start our day on a positive note. Just before I left for work, Samantha, who had gotten up early, had a delightful breakfast ready. It was quite a spread: chicken soup, fish, and an omelet. A truly hearty meal. The tempting aroma of the food tantalized my senses and awakened my empty stomach. "This is delicious," I remarked between bites. Even though I once aspired to be a chef, I have a discerning palate for food. I can confidently say that Samantha's soup is truly delectable. It's not just the soup. The seasoning of the fish is just right, And the omelet, from its color to its shape and taste, is perfect. The quality is just as good as any restaurant. This is incredible. It must have been challenging to prepare such a high-quality breakfast. As I enjoyed my meal, Samantha's face gradually turned red, and she stammered, I'm glad. Be confident. I'm a diner owner's son after all. Samantha, you're a great cook. With that, I finished my meal, openly expressing my genuine opinion. Samantha shyly hid her face behind the tray she was holding and confessed, Well, I've never served my homemade food to anyone before. I'm happy, though. Seeing Samantha genuinely happy was charming. They say not to judge a book by its cover, and that certainly held true for Samantha. Beyond her appearance, she had a playful and charming personality. She was so domestically inclined that one could easily forget she was a CEO's daughter. She handled household chores almost flawlessly, except for laundry. The other day, she accidentally turned all my shirts blue while trying to sort them by color. I'm sorry. They turned completely blue, haven't they? She apologized. A mistake that would have upset me if I had made it somehow became forgivable when Samantha did it. I reassured her. Slowly but surely, I fell in love with Samantha. At first, I wasn't sure how things would turn out, but by the time we had been living together for 6 months, we had grown closer. One day, Samantha came home in tears after a doctor's appointment. Something had come up during her health checkup, and I could guess what it was. Don't cry so much, I consoled her, trying to comfort Samantha. I don't necessarily expect us to have children, but with my current figure, you won't be able to hold me, Samantha. Tears welled up in my eyes as I struggled to convey my emotions. I wanted Samantha to understand that I was more than willing to love her just as she was. However, Samantha had made up her mind. She looked at me with determination and declared, I've decided I'm going on a diet. I want to live a long life, and I want children. I want to walk proudly by your side, Jack. Her resolve deeply touched me, and she blushed as she expressed her intentions. Samantha began her diet journey, and I decided to join her in the effort. After all, I had started to worry about my own waistline. I guess I had put on some happy weight because Samantha's cooking was just too delicious. We began jogging together before work and took evening walks, but as expected, it wasn't easy to keep up. Samantha began to feel disheartened and said, I can't do it anymore. I couldn't bear to see her lose hope. This was a promise between Samantha and me. If she ever felt like giving up, I would be there to support her. So when Samantha seemed on the verge of giving up, I knew I had to step in. One day, as we were going about our routine, I had a proposal for Samantha and approached her with excitement in my voice. Hey, Samantha, I have a suggestion, I began. Samantha turned to me curious and asked, What is it? I explained my idea, saying, How about we buy a dress? Here's my plan. I'll buy the dress that you want to wear the most right now. And you, Samantha, will work hard on your diet so that you can fit into that dress. Having a goal in front of you can make the journey easier. Samantha thoughtfully considered the idea and responded, That might be a great idea. I've never worn a dress before. With Samantha on board, we decided to take our commitment to a healthier lifestyle even further. We agreed to have separate bedrooms. Samantha had expressed a desire to do stretches and yoga at night, and she felt self-conscious about it when someone was watching. She explained, If I'm being watched, it's embarrassing. If I ever make a request like that, will you fulfill it? I readily agreed to her request. Samantha's dedication and commitment to her diet were truly inspiring, and I was more than willing to support her in any way I could. 6 months later, our efforts had paid off. By the time we had been married for a year, Samantha had transformed into a remarkably beautiful woman. Her weight had dropped significantly, and her original figure with well-defined curves had re-emerged. Samantha now had a stunning waistline, and she radiated confidence and beauty. One day, Samantha came running to me, her face beaming with joy. Jack, I'm going to try on that dress today, Samantha said. Really? I'm going to change in the bedroom. Wait for me here, she added. As Samantha headed to her bedroom, I couldn't help but think about the past year. It was the first time we were going to share a bedroom since her weight loss. I had almost forgotten what her bedroom looked like because Samantha had always been quite strict about keeping me out of it. Samantha's invitation filled me with a sense of anticipation. When I entered her bedroom, I was taken aback by her beauty. There she stood, wearing the red dress I had bought for her. Blushing yet graceful, she looked like a goddess. This is incredible, I murmured, my eyes fixed on her. "You look stunning." Samantha blushed even more and fidgeted adorably. "Do I look weird?" "Not at all," I assured her. "You're beyond beautiful, Samantha." "Really?" "Truly," I confirmed. Samantha chuckled happily and said, "Oh, stop it, but I'm flattered." I couldn't help but express my concern. "I mean, what if some strange guy comes over when you look like this?" Samantha's smile grew warmer. "In that case, you'll protect me, won't you?" I chuckled in response. I had silently vowed to protect Samantha at all costs. Gently, I closed the bedroom door behind me. As time continued to pass, we embarked on a new journey together. I made a life-changing decision. I took over my dad's restaurant, paid off the debt, and quit. My previous job had been tough, but reviving a restaurant with a tarnished reputation presented an even greater challenge. Nonetheless, through dedication and hard work, we managed to turn it into a popular spot. Every morning, long lines formed outside our doors, and our journey together continued with newfound success. "Samantha, take this to table 5. I heard Samantha call out from the bustling kitchen. "Got it, Samantha," I replied as I navigated the restaurant's dining area. "How's the meal for table 8? "It's almost ready," she replied, her voice tinged with excitement. It was a typical day at our restaurant, and Samantha was in her element in the kitchen. When I had explained the dire situation the restaurant was in, Samantha expressed her desire to have someone try her cooking despite our lack of popularity. "Jack, you've always praised my cooking," she said. "That gives me confidence. To be honest, I'm convinced that if I cook for the restaurant, it will surely succeed." I had unwavering faith in Samantha's culinary skills. She had always enjoyed cooking, even admitting to gaining weight from indulging in her own creations. This quality made her an ideal fit for running a diner. While customer traffic had dwindled, it hadn't disappeared entirely. I appealed to our regulars to give Samantha's cooking a chance. Soon enough, her culinary talents were recognized, and customers began to return. Some even became daily patrons. My role was to assist in the kitchen and handle front-of-house management. I was dedicated to creating an environment where Samantha could fully showcase her talents. In the evenings, I would return to the restaurant, and the store's door would creak as I entered. It was still early for dinner, so the restaurant was relatively calm. In this peaceful atmosphere, a young boy with a backpack walked in. "Welcome back, Jake," I greeted him warmly. "Dad, I'm hungry. Can you ask Mom to make something?" Jake, our elementary school-age son, requested. "Of course," I chuckled. "Just wait a bit." Our son, always eager for a meal when he came home from school, headed to the kitchen. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of contentment. At that moment, I was genuinely happy. I had my loving wife, my adorable son, and the privilege of living with both of them in the restaurant. Running a restaurant had always been a dream of mine. Samantha and I had initially married out of necessity due to the debt, and it might not have been considered an ideal match by some. However, from the depths of my heart, I could honestly say, I'm glad I married you. As I reflected on our journey, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the life we had built together. Despite the odds, we had found happiness in the most unexpected of places. Our story was a testament to the power of determination, love, and the pursuit of one's dreams. And with that, our journey continued, filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future.